me something, Uncle Money?
Welcome to another episode of Practice Prosperity. We have a special guest. We're going to take a unique term and really talk about health insurance. We all want to grow our practices, but when you begin adding employees, something that they may ask for is health insurance. So we have our special guest today, Margaret Battle. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, if you don't mind, just to get us started off, tell me a little bit about your firm, who you service, and how did you get into this business?
Sure. I'll start with a little bit about how I got into this business. I was working for a larger employer, promotional product sales actually, and we had a group plan.
Yeah.
It was not a great group plan. It kept getting more expensive every year. My deductibles kept getting higher every year. And every year I was spending more money taking myself and my kids to the doctor, trying to keep us healthy. And so I started kind of looking around at what other options there might be if I was to look for something on an individual basis.
Yeah.
As a group plan was kind of becoming not a viable option for us as a family at that point. And found somebody who was specifically in the individual and small business health insurance market. Sat down with him, walked through a lot of things that really I had not previously understood about health insurance, because the first time I signed up, nobody sat down and talked to me about what does your deductible do and how do you use your insurance? What's the best way to kind of get the most bang for your buck out of it? He really took the time to do that. Ended up signing up for an individual plan for myself. We moved my family over a couple of years after that. But when I was ready for a new challenge, I reached back out to him and said, what does it look like if I sit on the other side of the table? So what if I am the person that's walking people through what it means to have health insurance and how to use it? And really just liked the way that was. I have a background in education and really enjoyed sitting down with people more on a one-on-one basis and helping them learn more about that. So specifically, I work with individuals and small businesses. And when I say small, I'm thinking 10, 12 employees that are on the plan to help them find the best insurance that's going to work for them. I like to approach it from a more individualized basis. Not everybody has the same health needs. Even when you have a small employer of 3 or 4 people, all of those individuals and families have different needs. So if you can approach it from what does each person need, and then extrapolate from there, what plan are we going to do and how are we going to use it and set it up, it works a lot better for that individual or family.
Okay, I like it. So in my world, there are different triggers that somebody will reach out to a financial planner. Based on the customers that you service, what are some of those triggers where they say, I think I need a group health plan or an individual health plan if I'm just a small business owner?
Sure. So a lot of times a lot of where places will start is someone who is moving into a self-employed space. So maybe they've had a side hustle and they've been kind of putting off letting go of that larger employer plan because that's what's covering themselves or their family. So a lot of people that are moving into that self-employed space, taking that side hustle full time, and a lot of people who are growing their business. So instead of it's just me and I am fine with this marketplace plan because I don't use it that much, now I want to recruit and retain quality employees. And that looks different if you are offering health insurance versus not. Or even if you're providing resources, because if you don't know anything about it, you don't use health insurance, your ideal employee may want health insurance and may need to be able to use that. So a lot of times that's what we're looking at is somebody that has never walked through that before, never had to set anything up. And that's where I try to really be a good resource, almost like a mini HR department, taking that burden off of a business owner or off of somebody that's self-employed. You don't have to be the expert in that. That's my job. I've got the certifications, I have the trainings, I do the work, and you get to focus on the things that you are doing best.
I like what you said, explain what it covers and maybe what your employees need. What are some of the things the average individual does not think about when it comes to health coverage that they may be underutilizing just because they're unaware of what they could use?
Yes. So a lot of plans will have started covering chiropractic visits. And I've actually talked a lot about this recently with other people because I have some people kind of in my sphere that have actually started moving towards surgery for different things, shoulders, knees, backs, things like that. Where you think about it, if they realized that they had chiropractic coverage in their plan ahead of time, 4 years ago, and they had started kind of treating those symptoms as they came up. A lot of that could have been prevented. So now we've got a major surgery, a long recovery time. We're not making as much money because we're not working. We're utilizing a lot of that health insurance. But if we had utilized some of the things that are already built in to go ahead and correct those issues ahead of time, things will look a lot different 3, 4 years down the road.
Yeah, I think it's important that preventive care, especially we don't have to suffer with lower back pain just because we sit down every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something we have to deal with. So usually, now that we have the healthcare exchange, which I think is a good thing because it makes people aware that I don't have to only go through an employer for healthcare. We're more aware of privatized healthcare. Mm-hmm. At what point does somebody, as far as income, move from the exchange all the way to something private, something tailored to their own healthcare needs? At what point do you see that in your firm?
So a lot of times we'll see it, and a lot of it will depend on your household size. So if you have an income of $260,000 and you are one person in the household, you're going to be moving into private space a lot sooner. If you've got 3, 4, or 5 kids, that looks different because it's going to be scaled based on how many people are in your household. Your premiums will be scaled based on the number of people in your household. But a lot of times we'll see it around, I always think it's a good idea to start exploring around $150,000, $200,000 a year, just to see what's out there, especially depending on how you are using your plan. A lot of times, depending on your state, marketplace plans can be more restrictive. A lot of times what you're seeing is an HMO plan, which means you have to clear a lot of those specialist visits through your primary care provider, which is essentially an extra doctor's visit every time you want to see a specialist. On the private side, you see a lot more PPO plans where if you want to see a podiatrist or an ENT or an orthopedic surgeon, you pick one that's in network and you go. You don't have to clear everything through your primary care physician, which kind of reduces the number of visits that you're making to that primary care physician, really putting kind of the trust in you to manage your healthcare instead of having a physician manage everything for you. But on the private side, a lot of times it's going to be a lot more flexible. On the marketplace side, HMO, you kind of, I will tell people a lot of times on the marketplace side, you get what you pay for. So if we are putting in something really low and you are paying a very low premium, you're getting a lot of times a lower amount of not service, but return on that investment because you're not investing a whole lot in your health insurance. If you're planning to use it, it's something that you really need to do the research on to make sure you are getting the best plan for you, whether it's marketplace or private. Regardless, it's important to me that I make sure my clients are always, we're looking at the doctors. Who are we going to visit? Who are we visiting now? Who do we want in network? Do we want to make sure MD Anderson is an option, or are we looking at the Spinal Institute, anything like that? If you have a plan that those places that you want to visit are not in network, it's not serving you. It's not the best plan for you. You want those in network. That's where you get the most bang for your buck. You're getting that contracted rate, almost like a discount on services.
That's interesting. I never thought about, let's do an inventory of all the things I do health-wise. So let's say I have a nutritionist, let's say I have a chiropractor, let's say I go to this specialty foot doctor because I run a lot. How do you do that when you sit down with the clients, do an inventory of what they do on a day in and day out basis? What is that process like?
So I try to make sure I understand the client's needs. What doctors are they going to? So where, and then just what those doctors are using. So if those doctors are all on an Aetna network, then Aetna is the first place that we need to look at. If those doctors are all looking at United or Blue Cross Blue Shield, anything like that, that's where we start. If none of them match up, and I've had it before, none of them are matching up, or we have 5, 6, 7 doctors, there's inevitably going to be one doctor that's out of network for something. So at that point, we need to take into account, okay, which doctor is it okay to be out of network? We see this one every 2 years. That one's probably okay to cash pay, to have an out of network a little bit higher visit because you're only going every 2 years. If you're seeing Dr. Smith every 6 months, that one has to be in network because you don't want to cash pay a higher price every 6 months for the doctor that you see the most often. But it's really, you become friends really fast because you are getting a good health history. So tell me what's going on. What's not what's wrong with you, but what are we working on with you? Who are we seeing? Who is helping you live your best life?
Good. So let's take the example of a 5-person practice. They want to provide health insurance for all 5 of them. What is the process? What are they going to go through when they meet with you for the first time and moving forward?
Sure. So a lot of times I start with a practice owner, a practice manager, someone like that that's kind of spearheading the effort, and getting a feel for overall where we're trying to go with everything. That also, I think, helps the practice understand where their kind of budget point falls. Are we covering a percentage? Are we covering a flat rate? What is that going to look like? It's different for everybody, and you do what's most comfortable for you and your practice and your business. You know that part best, and I'm trying to learn about it. From there, once we're kind of at a go position, I like to sit down with each employee that is interested. Maybe they don't all sign up, but each employee that's interested individually and say, okay, where are we going to go? What do you need from me? And what do I need from you to get you in the best position? Again, everybody's health needs are different, they're individualized. And I also don't want people to have to disclose a lot of their, medical history in a group setting. That's not comfortable for anybody. So individually kind of sitting down, different people understand different things about insurance. And so maybe somebody has a spouse that's in an insurance position or claims or something like that. And if I start with, this is what a deductible is, they immediately are bored. But if someone is 24, 26 years old, they've never signed up for insurance, they need that kind of crash course. This is their starting point. Again, everybody's a little bit different. That's why the individual touch, I think, is so important to get everybody in their best position. Once we kind of have a feel for where each employee wants to be, we're taking that back to the business owner, the manager. This is what they're thinking. Where does that fit with your bottom line and what you as a business are trying to do? And then we go from there. Once we have that set, walk everybody through the application process, and get them all set up and ready to go. And then after all that's done, I'm still here to answer questions. A claim doesn't look right. We need help finding doctors that are in network, all that good stuff. Just as a resource, again, to take some of that burden off of a business. They don't have to, they're kind of outsourcing that to me. They don't have to memorize a bunch of doctors or different plans for people.
Very good. So how should a business owner budget for this? And how should they think about either the business pays for the expense, the employee supplement that expense? So where have you seen the balance work with the people you work with?
So I think what has worked best for the businesses that I'm working with has been like a flat rate.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times what we'll see is either kind of 50% of the lowest or we're fully covering the lowest, because it will vary based on age and demographic. I've worked with businesses that have employees in other states too. So your zip code will affect some of that as well. And then from there, that helps an employee budget. Okay, if my employer is comfortable covering $300 of this, and then my kind of out of pocket on the insurance is going to be 75, it's going to be 150, or if I'm adding my family, it's 300, whatever that is. That way, that helps them determine which plan is going to be best for them, because I like to present multiple options, and each one may have a different price point. That way they can pick the one that's going to be comfortable for them in terms of coverage and in terms of their overall budget. I think also it's good to approach it from, and this takes some math and some thinking, but if you think about your employee turnover and how much it costs you as a business to train somebody new, what are we willing to put into not training somebody new and retaining an employee and getting kind of that institutional knowledge that they're going to have 2, 3, 5 years down the road? Putting that back into that employee and really kind of building them as a resource instead of just constantly turning over and training and spending more money on that.
So let's talk about retention. So of course, healthcare is a retention tool. What are you seeing out there in the market of the need of healthcare that employees are requiring? Do you see there's a lot more health situations where employees need, how big of a retention tool is healthcare?
I think it is a really big retention tool just because that's something that employees are becoming more used to. It's becoming a larger conversation nationally
Yeah.
in terms of what employers are offering. I think at some point in some of the massive employers, you think like Google, Apple, Amazon, it's almost a competition of like, what cool thing can we add into our health insurance that makes us stand out from the competitors?
Mhm.
And you almost need to think about that on a smaller scale as well. Like, what can we offer? We have this great environment. We have this wonderful practice, and our office is beautiful, and our staff culture is amazing. What's the other thing that we can add to it that is going to recruit and retain and attract quality employees? And a lot of times that's health insurance. Um, Overall, sometimes for a business bottom line, it's not a huge expense. It's also something that you always want to talk to a tax professional about because that does make a difference in terms of business taxes for sure. And I am not a tax professional. So I just want to make sure we're looking to an expert on that too. But that does make a difference for you as a business in terms of how you're filing. It changes things, I think, significantly. Also gives your employees a way to stay healthy. If you have somebody that is needing to call out a lot because they have something chronic going on, they need that health insurance. And they need it sooner so that they can kind of start managing that condition and become more stable employee and a more stable person just in their personal life, being healthy and feeling good both at work and at home.
So, what are some of the things that employers should be wary of when they think about purchasing health insurance for them and their employees? Like, stay away from that, maybe double think twice about that option. What are some of those things?
I think it's always a think twice about everything.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we are comparing all the options as what
Mhm.
I always recommend. So we want to look at, what does a group option look like? What does it look like if we set everything up individually? What does that change? How does it affect things? Which one is going to be better overall?
Mhm.
Both bottom line and coverage wise, because it will change based on what you're setting up. Um, I am always very wary of picking just the absolute cheapest option. And I think a lot of people, with health insurance, you think of it as something that you don't use very often. And so a lot of times that lowest price point option is the most attractive. It's something I'm not going to use very often. We're throwing it in the back of the closet and I'll only wear it once. So it doesn't matter if I only paid $50 for it. But that one time that you need to dust it off because you found a lump or there's something major going on and it's not the best policy for you, then we're really in a pickle because it's not something that's going to work for what you need it for. So the kind of lowest price point option is something I'm always leery of. Sometimes that's the best way to go based on budget, and we need to start somewhere. But I think it's an evaluation process of when can we fluff it up a little bit? When can we make it a little bit nicer, brush it out, take it to the cleaners, and make it a little bit better for everybody to use?
So that's what people should, be wary of. But what should they run towards as far as specific coverage, maybe providers that you really like more than others? Like, what are something business owners should be looking towards when they think about getting insurance, health insurance?
I think overall, a PPO plan is just a lot easier for people to use. And I say if you're going to be paying for it, you want people to use it because, again, that's keeping them healthy. That's keeping them in the office and fulfilled at home because they feel good and they are healthy and they're able to kind of attack their life and do the things that they want to do at work and at home. And I think it's a good balance. So you want them to be able to use it. A PPO plan is just going to be a lot more flexible for that. You can go to different doctors. It's a lot more widely accepted. The network is going to be a big deal. I worked with a client one time who she just had one employee on the plan, but they had set something up very fast through the marketplace. They were right at open enrollment cutoff, really had to do it super fast, weren't paying attention. There was one doctor in their town that was in network, and that was the only one that they could go see. And so if there was a long wait and they needed to get in pretty quick, they couldn't, or they were paying an out of network price. So that is something that we're always looking at. Again, that in network, out of network is going to be such a huge deal when you're talking in terms of healthcare. So PPO really helps to kind of take that burden off. You don't have to worry as much about it. Your network's larger, it's more flexible. You can go to see who you want to see, so who you're comfortable with, and get that care that you need.
I like it. So when we think about the renewal process, so we as business owners, we don't like surprises. So we set up an insurance company, we expect to pay this every month or every so often, but we have to renew. So what is the renewal process like? How can we keep our costs down when it comes to that?
Yeah, it's the same kind of evaluation process. How are we using it? Where are we using it? Where can we, if we need to, where can we trim some fat? I think on the private side, you actually see a lot less movement in terms of premiums, so fewer increases. We've seen them year over year on the marketplace jump up and up and up. I think that will continue. Overall, I think cost of just about everything is going to continue to go up. That just is how it is, unfortunately. And as a health insurance advisor, I don't have a solution for that. So don't look to me for that answer. But on the private side, you see a lot less movement. So a lot of times for a business owner, that's going to give you a more stable price, and a lot less sticker shock every 12 months. So often that's something that's important to look for, but it is an evaluation process. So did this specific plan jump 30% this year? If so, maybe we need to look for a different plan for that person, or that family. What are their needs like? Is it the same? Or have we added something? What's going on that we need to evaluate, both in terms of where we're at from a business price point standpoint and where we are from a care standpoint. So do we need different doctors in network? Do we need fewer doctors? What does that look like?
Like it. So let's talk about strategy as far as the business owner. And I deal with a lot of business owners in transition. So whether they're having a child or planning on growing their family, they may have an elderly parent moving into their home. They may do other things. Like, what are some of the strategies you see business owners like make adjustments so that they're, I guess, paying as little out of pocket for healthcare as possible?
Planning when we can plan is always very helpful. And it's not always feasible, especially when you're talking about having a child or suddenly needing to move an elderly parent in. So when we can plan ahead, it does mitigate those costs. When we can't, there are some other things that we can look at. So once you are pregnant or you have any other kind of condition and we need to add that sort of care aspect, there are different options that we can look at. And it's always, I think, an evaluation process. This is what we're paying per month for this type of coverage. And then this is the cost that we're offsetting, making sure that matches up. An easy example would be dental insurance. A lot of times, actually, you know what? You probably work with a lot of dental owners, don't you?
Yes.
We're gonna scrap that part. But when you have something that's going on, and you suddenly need a different type of care, it's always going to be, what can we manage? What cost are we offsetting, versus what are we paying per month to add that coverage? And what does our end point look like as well? So a lot of times that's not going to be a 25-year process. It's going to be, if we're talking about a pregnancy, 8-10 months. If we're talking about somebody that's moving in, that's a lot longer. You don't really have an endpoint for that, but it's a management process, and what kind of costs are we offsetting?
I thought you brought up a good point as far as, we think about health insurance, think about going to the doctor, hospitalization, but there is dental. There's vision. It could be some other things. Have you seen your clients combine those services? Do they combine those services? Do they outsource that? How do you think about those things?
I like to always add it as an option. I wear contacts and glasses consistently, and so I think vision is a very important aspect of health insurance for me. It's overall relatively inexpensive as well. Dental insurance, I think, is always an evaluation process. Vision is vision. So you're going to get your comprehensive eye exam, and then you will usually have an allowance towards frames or lenses. For dental, it's what kind of care do we need still? So sometimes it will cover alignments or braces, and sometimes it's just going to cover basic care. What type of family situation are we in? Do we have kids that are going to need braces? Is it just you and you don't? So where does that fall in terms of what kind of coverage we're setting up? I typically will include it as a line item when I'm doing quotes so that people know this is what it's going to cost if you would like to add it. What I see on the business side, and even with larger group plans as well, is that the employer is not covering as much of that dental and vision insurance. It's typically going to be they're covering a portion of the health, and then dental and vision is something that employees can add at their own cost if they want to. I think it's really important on both ends. You'll see a lot of research where your oral health and your eye health as well contribute to your overall body health. A lot of times things will come up that your dentist will notice that are symptoms of something larger going on in your body, and same with your eyes too. That I think it's important to get all those things checked out every year. So I like to include it.
Let's say there's a business owner who's listening to this and they say, okay, this is something I want to add as part of my business. What are the pre-steps before they give you a call they should be doing to help smooth the process?
I think it's important to kind of get a feel a little bit from your employees and recognizing that you're never going to make everybody happy. What is it that they are looking for? And that helps kind of direct our conversation a little bit. So I worked with a business and they had so many very, very young employees, and all they wanted was dental and vision insurance. And that's a very different conversation than for setting up somebody that has a couple of young employees and families and older employees who want that full comprehensive medical, dental, and vision. It takes a little bit of pressure off if we're just doing dental and vision. It's a shorter conversation. But I think it's important to get a feel from your employees. Is this what we want? Is this where we need to go? Would this be beneficial from you? And kind of what their experience may have been with insurance before. So maybe they're on a spouse's plan and it's been terrible. They hate it. They're so ready to move off and they're so excited that you're thinking about this. Or maybe they've never had insurance before and they actually have no idea what you're talking about. They could care less. Those are different conversations and different starting points for us. I be prepared as a business owner to take a census is kind of what we call it, where everybody is. So we're talking zip codes, birth dates, height, weight, things like that, a little bit of medical history. And again, I will help with a lot of that. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to collect a bunch of personal information from people when they don't really need it for what they're doing for their jobs. But kind of prepare them for that so they know it's coming. And that way we can kind of hit the ground running. It's not a huge lag time as we're collecting that and starting to line out different plan options.
So I think what I'm hearing from you is that this is not something the business owner should do in a bubble. They should not say, health insurance today is good. This is something that is almost kind of like a selling point to your employees saying, hey, what are you guys thinking? What are you feeling? What is your involvement? And it should be that type of decision.
Yes, because again, like my feeling is that health insurance and healthcare is so personalized. It's important, I think, to get a feel for where everybody is wanting to take it. And maybe you want to set up something where instead of the business owner spearheading it, that employee that is so passionate about health insurance and really wants to add in and is so excited, maybe that employee is taking things over for the business owner and you're kind of outsourcing that and giving them a little bit extra responsibility. That's a good way to build leadership skills in employees as well, I think, and of helping them manage that process. And if you have somebody that's really passionate about it, they're going to get other people excited about it. There's very few people are actually super excited to fill out a census of information on what's going on.
I like that. So you've decided on your health care coverage. How do you engage your employees? Like you said, they have to make the step. It's like contributing to a 401k. That's not automatic for some employees. So how do you get the employee engaged to make sure, hey, this benefit's here. I want you to utilize it because I also want you to value working with me.
I think it starts with a conversation just like that. And this is something that we as a business are adding, and we want you to be able to use it. And so if you're going to be able to use it, you need to be actively involved in that conversation. This person, me, or another insurance advisor is a resource to you. talk to them and figure out what's going to work best for you, because it doesn't make any sense for you or the business to pay for it if you're not going to be able to use it. If you're not actively engaged in that conversation as an employee, as a person that's covered by health insurance, you're going to end up with something that's not best for you. You're not going to like using it. You're not going to want to use it, where everybody's wasting money. But if you're actively engaged in that conversation, you're getting a better feel for it. You know how to use it and you're comfortable using it. If you're going to pay for something, I think you should be able to use it and use it with ease.
So what is next for your firm? Like, what is your coverage area? Who can you all service? What does it look like for you going forward in the future?
Yeah, so I am physically located in Texas. So I obviously have a lot of clients in Texas, but I'm originally from South Carolina, and did my master's at the University of Georgia. So I do have a lot of East Coast clients as well. But I have kind of a national coverage area. I'm happy to talk to anybody about health insurance. I'm sure some people would prefer that I stop talking about it as much. But it's what I am passionate about. And again, I think people should be able to use it. And the more you know about it, the better you are at using it. But I focus kind of, I'm a Texas and a Southeast kind of girl. I had full intentions of moving back to the East Coast when I moved out to Texas. And obviously it's been, 15 years. I haven't made it back that way yet, but maybe one day. But I'm willing and able to help anybody that has questions about health insurance.
Very good. And what is the best way they can reach out to you?
I have a website. It's battleinsurance.net. And my email address is margaret@battleinsurance.net as well. There's contact forms on there. And I always make sure to tell people, when you are searching online for health insurance, if you use a specific website, so somebody's personal website like mine, the information goes to me. If you Google health insurance and you're filling things out online, especially government websites, that information is actually sold to multiple third parties, and you will start getting a ton of phone calls. So I talked to somebody that got 30 phone calls in one day. And as a business owner, you don't need 30 phone calls in one day about health insurance. You need 30 phone calls in one day about your business. So I always say, kind of shop your network, find somebody that knows somebody that does that, and then reach out to that person specifically to save you a lot of headache.
Awesome. All right. So I'll give you the last word. What is something that I may have not asked that people should be thinking about health insurance?
I think in terms of health insurance, people just a lot of times forget that it's there.
Yeah.
You hear kind of the horror stories of somebody went into the ER and they didn't have any coverage and it was XYZ bill. But on my end, I hear a lot of stories where somebody broke their leg and it cost them $500. It is so important to have. You don't see a lot of people driving around without auto insurance, and you don't see a lot of people with a house that don't have homeowners insurance. You insure your business, you probably have life insurance. You need to protect your health as well. If you don't have your health, you don't have a whole lot of other things that you can do. And I think it's important to be able to maintain that so you can make those memories with your family and for yourself so that you're healthy and you're moving forward in your life.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Margaret Battle, for joining us on Practice Prosperity. I think what you shared is something that we all aspire to provide that type of health coverage to our employees. So thank you very much for joining me.
Perfect. Thank you.
The more I know, the more money I can make.